Sure. Alright, let's call to order the meeting tonight of our sewer commission. Everybody please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are you kidding me? Busy next week. All right. On our agenda, I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. Ready? Yeah. Start with the minutes. Yes, please.
We've got two of them actually. Do you guys have any questions on them?
Nope.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the April 11th, 2023 and the May 9th, 2023 meetings of the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll start with we'll just go right down. We'll go right down.
We'll follow on with this.
Hi, Paul, are you with us? How are you? Hi, Paul.
How's the audio here, Paul?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay, good. All right, so we wanna talk about the water sewer payment plan? Is that,
Correct.
okay?
Yeah, Rocket told me that you guys, after I left the last meeting, that you started talking about payment plans, in order to help people out that were struggling. We actually, in the tax side, we don't do any payment plans until we've secured a lien on the property to make sure that the town gets paid. That way we're protecting the town. That's kind of like best practice in our industry. And for me, I think it might be kind of confusing if people are like behind on their water. They may already be or may become delinquent in their taxes as well. And so they may be looking for a payment plan over there. So you could end up with a situation where they're paying their water bill, their water lien, the water payment plan, the real estate taxes, and a real estate payment plan. It could get kind of confusing for people. And it is kind of labor intensive. It's a lot of hand holding, but we already have a system in place for that. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what your indirects to some extent are for, at least in part, that we already have that process in place. So I would recommend against taking on the work of a payment plan and just let it go to lien as it normally would. And then if they still don't pay it, it would fall into our payment plan and we can take care of it with our process at that point. That would be my recommendation.
They already have a payment plan in place.
Yes, makes sense to me. Okay, that makes sense.
I didn't realize that.
So it's good to know.
Do we have to undo anything that we did?
We would need to revisit what was voted on in the previous meeting, where we talked about starting the implementation of some type of payment plan. Also, this would eliminate the option we had started to talk about waiving interest on bills, things like that. So basically, we want to revert back to the original way of doing things, allow the process to go through if they do not make the payments on time. Then we go through the actual lien process and we follow through with our demand notices that we talked about that we're going to send out with an additional $15 demand. And then if you go to the lien process, you guys had already, I believe, voted to approve the $50 lien, which goes to the tax collector for covering some of the expenses required for that lien process.
Okay. So is that something we can do tonight, or I would do that tonight?
We probably should act on that tonight.
So we just need to make a motion to negate last month's motion.
Well,
and
I gotta look at the minutes to figure out how we have to undo what we just approved of.
you know what, I have the minutes right here, so let's take a look at that here.
So, do we need? Did policy our minutes, our draft minutes by any chance?
I do not believe she did.
Okay.
And that was for the demand fee, so we have to redo that one as well? The $50 demand fee or just
Just the demand was gonna be in place.
No, that's gonna be in place. That's what Paul wanted.
Okay, I'm trying to find the motion
So
that
we
we
did,
need to.
there was a motion for 411 Old Colony Road for their meter to be tested and have the accuracy checked and see
Yep.
if they would be willing to enter into a payment plan. I have the motion right here.
Right, I'm looking at it here, I'm just trying to figure out what we need to negate on that.
That was the one that was on.
Like, we're not negating the accuracy test
3.
of the meter, we're just negating the payment plan.
So maybe just revoke the
We
motion
told
and make a
him
new
we
one.
would get back to him as we settled our discussion. with,
Yeah, that maybe might make sense, actually. So revoke that motion and then make a motion to just offer them to have the meter tested. As a separate motion, does that make sense?
I mean, meter testing is in the regulations right now, they have
Right.
the option for
Just
that, if they
both
dispute it.
motion.
I would say just remove that motion that was there, that the board was interested in entering into payment plans.
Okay,
Just to avoid the confusion like Paul brought up with multiple payment plans.
Yeah, no, that's,
okay, then I can say that I would like to make a motion to revoke the motion for the May 9th, 2023 meeting to offer 411 Old Colony Road for their meter to be tested and have the accuracy checked and see if they would be willing to enter into a payment plan for this bill.
I'll second.
all in favor?
So do we now wanna make a motion to have the meter tested again?
We
Offer them to have the meter
provided
tested,
them
we're
that
just gonna
option,
do that anyway.
that's it.
Alright, so we don't have to make a motion for that then.
So is there anything else we have to do to change what we've done?
Yeah.
We don't have to do the motion for going forward. We're going through the demand notice and then going through the procedure.
I believe
That we
at
gotta
the
follow.
last meeting, we implemented the $15 demand notice and the $50 additional fee
Yep.
if it goes to lien.
And it goes to lien, and then the billing goes, they take care of the.
It would go to the tax collector.
Okay, so that's all automatic, that's
So that takes care of that.
Okay.
I believe that's clear.
I have one question regarding this though. It doesn't go to lien till the end of the fiscal year, as we talked about last month, right? So if someone for some reason has a huge bill and they wanna come to us and do the whole abate the sewer and work on something like that, we basically can't offer them a payment plan, we have to say, no, just wait until they're gonna put a lien on your taxes and you'll take care of it down the road. That's kind of what we have to tell them. Is that right?
We would obviously recommend that they pay as much as they possibly can to keep it from going and creating a demand notice.
Right, but we wouldn't offer a payment
But
plan,
it's
we
not
would just say, pay what you can, or it's gonna go to collections.
Right, we don't.
Okay.
we
It's
don't
just,
offer
unfortunate timing of events, if it happens to be closer towards the end of the
Yep,
year,
yep.
they have less time, to make amends and get that bill current, which I think is something that you had touched on
Yeah.
at one of the discussions we started. That it's not fair for a few, based on timing, some would have a lot more time to pay with the payment plan as compared to others, so.
It sounds like there would have to be some major changes in the way things operate for that not to be the case though, so.
Right, which is something, we don't wanna add any more work, either to this office or to the tax collectors if we don't have to. So, even though it definitely sounded like a very good option, after hearing, the potential downfalls of it from Paul, thank you. I think we better stay with the track that we were on.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets to that and there's already something they can enter into at that point, and then in the end, that money still comes to the department to pay that bill, then that's kind of what we want to happen at the end of the day anyway, right?
Yeah, they're not gonna lose their house without going through
Right.
plenty of options for payment plans, and it's a long process. And to be frank with you, Lane Court is very backed up. It's an extremely long process right now. So I just give them time, but what you've done is you've secured the loan for the town to make sure that you eventually do get the water charges, because obviously you folks need those to make sure everybody's got water and sewer, so.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me, I think.
Great.
Paula, do you have an extra minute that we can keep you on for a question?
Absolutely.
Do you mind if we go out of order?
Please.
I wanted to bring up to the board tonight that there's an opportunity for a land purchase for the sewer department. Paul has been going through some of the lands that's owned by the town. There's a parcel of land next to the Cobb Street sewer station, to the right of it. It's been maintained by the department for as long as I've been here, 23 years. And come to find out, it's actually owned by the town, not by the sewer department. So as a process of generating some revenue, Paul has gone through and found a few of these parcels of land that could be listed for sale. If we want to continue to use that property as a means of egress, we would need to purchase that property. So I want to know if the board was willing to start the process and find out what that's going to entail, or if you just want to let that go and we can put it back on.
What are we gonna use it for? What are we gonna, for expansion?
We also, we just put a new, in the fence there, we have a gate that basically faces the door to the building, so it makes it a lot easier for moving heavy equipment in and out of the building and having a clear pathway.
But it's a town-owned property now?
Yes, so it's been used for maintenance egress to the property. Now with the remodeling going on at Cobb Street, it was necessary to get the generator in and out through that side there. So, you know,
Is this something the town's looking to sell on the open market if we don't buy it?
it is, I believe, Paul, that's a buildable lot. I believe that's just over 5,000 square.
Actually, since we've talked last, I'm not so sure that it is, because it depends on who owned it and when and all the rest of it, so it's more complicated and not my area of expertise.
Okay.
So I don't know, but when you told me about how you used it, we're certainly not gonna sell it out from underneath you and, give you an opportunity to take ownership of it properly and work out whatever you need to with the select board to do that. So I'm not rushing, it's not an urgent situation, but I mean, if the water department and the Water Sewer Commission wants to hang on to that property for their purposes, that's, the direction you should head in.
So just wanted to start that discussion with you guys tonight if it's something we're interested in pursuing.
I'd be curious to know what the ballpark number would be.
Yeah, I don't even know how we figured that out because there's no dwelling on the property that hasn't been for
Has to be appraised.
a number of
The process.
years, so
Yeah.
it would have to be appraised.
The process that, standard procedure that Massachusetts goes through for this type of thing, has to be 3 appraisals, take the mean average, whatever, and
Okay,
that's
so
no,
Okay, so it's very cut and dry, there's not, the town can't try to make money on it over that.
no, it's all
It's
done
all-
by,
okay.
there's very strict regulations on this.
But it doesn't sound like it's used to anybody else, really. And it's not a very big parcel, it sounds like, either.
it's not huge, most of them
Down there,
fairly
it's
small.
been
Is it big enough that in the future, if for some reason we needed to expand that station, now we have the
Yeah, that's
space to do that?
That's
That sounds like
the
the biggest
long-term-
benefit to it.
Yep.
This, I agree, Jim.
That's why I'm presenting it. I think it'd be a
That's beneficial to us.
Beneficial.
That,
lot to have.
I mean, I guess we don't need to do it, but there's already been discussions in the past about making the wet well bigger or doing things to that for other projects that are going in, so eventually, that'll probably happen, at some point.
It's very possible.
So we just need to get the ball rolling,
As long as you guys are on board with it, we'll figure out what we need to do and move forward. We'll have to
Good.
go to the
Just
select
check it
board.
out, yeah, absolutely.
Steve?
Fine?
Sounds good.
Okay. Very good. That was it, Paul.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Paul.
it.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you,
Bye.
Paul.
You guys always think that was property, but you always knew that it was town property.
No.
You didn't even have any idea it was not our property.
Maintaining it, we always assumed it was sewer property. It was one lot.
So we've been maintaining it?
Yeah, since I've been here.
So we could file eminent domain then.
I was thinking that, but I didn't go that
All right, never mind. No, that's not called eminent domain. It's called,
Well, you target town parcels
it's called,
for pump stations, that's why it's there.
when you occupy it for 7 straight years.
Yeah, it has to do with the maintenance and occupancy for the period of time.
You can actually find out file events.
Basically,
It's called something.
Sounds like my wife before I married her.
And it fits with the sewer.
Something possession, called,
How the station's designed, it's a surprise that it wasn't sewer department property, because the door's on the total opposite side of the building to be useful for where the driveway is for the building right now, so.
Well, that's good.
If we can obtain it and it's a reasonable cost, it'd be great to have. If not, possibly we could require that there's some type of utility easement path there for future something.
So nothing builds and.
So you couldn't build right up against the fence. I mean, there's options there depending on what the appraisal comes back at, but
As long as
If you take away the option of building it, then nobody's gonna buy it from town. It goes away.
the building on everything, as we know.
they are, you're right. Right.
That's the truth.
Next up is 210 Plain Street.
Yep, that's me. My name's Kenneth Kalsinski.
I'm Steve, I'm the one that.
Steve.
Yep.
Yep, I believe we're Facebook friends as well, and maybe not. I've been a resident of Norton for 50 years. I've lived at 210 Plain Street for over 20 years, or just about 20 years, I should say. And I'm assuming if I'm on the agenda, you folks are all familiar with what my issue is, or I do believe I emailed every one of you.
And the chair, there's limitations on what we can discuss outside of the meeting.
Sure.
So the other two are coming in
That's
now.
why I asked you to come in because.
Yeah, no.
You can't talk outside, it's.
No, absolutely, I understand. I'm here to work with you, I'm not angry, I'm not upset, I'm not vindictive. I wanna have a resolution to my issue, as well as if this happens to other people in the town. It's funny, you just had her on, the tax collector, because I have 2 liens on my house from the water department, which I had no idea of until March, when this all started. So first of all, I'm not an irresponsible citizen, I pay my bills. I apologize if that affected any of you in any way. What I would like to ask is a few questions first before I get started with the story and what happened and how we can resolve it. Is when did the last bill go up? Do we know?
So it went out at the end of March and it was due the end of April.
Have not received it. Part of my problem. I have a mailbox, I get mail. I have not received a blue water bill, which I believe they're blue. I only know this from early in my residence. I have not received a water bill in over 4 years. Okay, the second question I have is when are the meters read, how often, and quarterly, once quarterly. So I had a new, come to find out, the beginning of the story is my meter broke sometime during COVID, either in 20 or 21. So you guys were unable to drive by and get a correct meter reading, unbeknownst to me. You're lovely women you have in the office, they're awesome. I give them all the credit in the world dealing with the public. Informed me of this in March. I only know this in March because the tax collector contacted me about the liens in the house. That's how this whole thing started. So in process of talking to Janice, I have some bills here. I guess it's not really bills, it's a utility status report, which I believe is an overview of my status over the last, or goes to 19, I believe. Now, if I look at this, during 19 and 20, my quarterly bills are 46. And then in 1 quarter, it jumps up to 278. Okay, and then over the process of another year, it's up to 372. Quarterly.
Yeah.
So they have some papers in front of them.
Yeah, this is the cover page of consumption. Okay, so from my understanding, after talking to Janice, after receiving this and trying to analyze this, which is not easy for the general public to read and understand, and if I didn't have a degree in mathematics, I would not understand it. Okay, and I would get very frustrated and go into my OCD and throw it away and don't care. So I don't understand how it goes up 1,000% in 1 quarter. Some of the answers that I received from Janice were, well, you never paid a bill and we just did that. Some of the other answers I received from the other girl was, well, we estimated your usage, which are all unacceptable to me.
But we have to do that if we can't get in the house.
Okay.
And you get a reading.
Well, this,
That's consistent, like, I'm looking at this utility status report. And we're going back to September of 18.
Yeah.
And it read 2596, that was
Yeah.
reading. And that was the state reading all the way up to
Yeah.
June of 21.
Yeah.
So what they do in that instance, the billing system doesn't flag that, so we
Okay.
send you a
minimum
minimum bill.
a minimum bill.
Which would be with
And
the
back
46.
then it was probably 46.
So, okay, which is great, which again, I haven't seen a bill. I haven't seen the last bill.
Right, which obviously is
Right, and
problem number one.
That's definitely.
In March, when this started, I started looking for that bill, because I wanna make sure that I get that bill.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all well and fine, but are you going to tell me that from 19 to now, my bill has gone up 1,000% from $46, or the reading has gone up so much? I mean, I don't understand how it goes from 46, even at a minimum, all the way up to $372 a quarter.
So I'll start way back.
Okay,
Our computer system only goes back as far as this report back to 2018.
okay,
After that, it dumps out the information.
Yeah.
So the reading being 2956 or 2596
yeah,
multiple times means the meter physically broke at that point
Okay.
and stopped actually generating a read.
okay,
So it happened prior to 2018.
okay,
And because it was still giving an electronic signal to the drive-by system that
Yeah.
we use, it was showing that 2596 on the dial. The billing software we have, antiquated, does not flag zero usage as a problem. It doesn't know that the house isn't vacant, people moved, anything like that. What it flags is if there's a digit missing or if there's no digits at all. And then it would generate a separate report when you do the download. And it would be on everybody's, tag sheet. Let's get there, let's see the cards, let's see the notices, see what's going on. After numerous times, and this I'm speaking from previous administration, what happens when you have estimated reads, which these are estimated because
I can understand that part of it.
it's not zero.
Yep.
If cards have been left and there's no response, which we are only going on what the field technician tells us, that they left a card here, they check it off, they go on to the next house. A high reading is put in to flag that account and hopefully generate somebody's
A
response.
high bill and a response from me.
What's going on? What happened? Why is this? That never happened because you're not getting the bills. So after a short period of time, again, previous administration would say, hey, we're going to jump it again because we have to show movement on this account so that I can trend it. So the estimated bills started from where the 0 units stopped. So they put in, I believe it was 50 units, and then at one point they put it to 55 units, all in the means to generate a phone call or a response.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's properties that are owned by people that don't physically live there.
Don't
You
get
run into a
bills.
situation where, the tenant is just mailing people the bill and those people are paying it or not paying it, whatever the case may be. But, when we start leaving notices, in our regulations, typically after 3 notices, we're supposed to go and shut the property's water off. And
Which
that's-
would
that's the
would have
ultimate
generated
response.
an immediate response from me. Okay,
Which we don't do.
Yep.
We haven't
out of the kindness of your heart.
100%,
Yep.
because we don't want that stigma to be on us that we're those people.
I go to work just like you do every morning, 5:30. There's nothing on my door. I come home 6 o'clock. There's nothing on my door, sir.
No,
There's not.
again, I can
So-
only go by what the technician
Okay,
said
so-
they did at the time.
Right.
We don't physically open the doors.
Yep.
We hang them on an outside
Yep.
doorknob because we can't put them in a mailbox. We can't go inside somebody's house and put it on the door. So cards are left. The water bill is the first means of connection with
Yeah.
the resident.
Yep.
Typically, if you would receive the bill, you would notice that, hey, this jumped up high this month or something's off, and that would generate a response. So obviously there's multiple layers of disconnect. So for some reason you're not getting the bills that are being sent to you, whether there's an error with, the billing software having the wrong address or something, because that's not handled directly here, it's handled, it's outsourced.
Okay.
So that obviously has to be looked into.
Yep.
But as far as, if you figure out how many billing cycles you received an estimated bill compared to what your actual bill should have been, which, since the meter was replaced back in
May 26th.
yeah, you've already used 3 units of water.
Okay, so that's 2 weeks. So if you multiply that by 6, you'll get 12 weeks, which is a quarter.
Like,
Right. So
yes
18
and no.
units.
It's a range.
Okay, so let's be nice and say 25.
Yeah.
25 units in the quarter. That's half.
Mhm.
So now I have 2 liens on my house and I have huge bills from the water fund. How am I gonna? Now God bless Janice, salt of the earth. You have no remedy because it's over 60 days. It's over. No, I do have remedy. So how can we fix this after? How?
Well, that's why the board is here.
Right.
I have no jurisdiction over changing numbers
Right.
abating anything. You know, basically, if you look at how far back the readings go and what the minimum bills were, and then you look at the bills that were generated that were, let's say for your example, are double, it almost balances out.
Well,
If you're using 20
Let's-
25 units,
if that's the case, and that's what I owe, I have no problem. However, what I would like to see as a logical man, aging quickly, is the numbers. You know, I'm a numbers guy. I'd like to see the numbers. I'd like to see every estimated bill, what the interest was on that, what the tax rate on that, what the estimated bill was, what it should have been. So how can we get to that point?
I don't even know if they can be repopulated because of the time frame that goes on and that they're not generated here. That's a question that you'd have to ask the IT department or the billing software department to see if it can be regenerated.
Okay.
Once they're distributed, they become your property. We don't physically see the bill.
Okay, the other issues I have is I never, now, again, Janice, everything on the bill, if it's not paid, we'll go in tax lien or wherever the statement is, tiny little print, very hard to read. I need 30s already, I'm only 50, I don't know what's gonna happen when I'm 70, okay? I never got a letter saying, not only that I not get bills, I never got a letter saying, hey, listen, this money is owed, it's gonna go to tax lien in 2 weeks if you don't pay this, if you don't contact us. And frankly, I think your discussion with the tax collector is wrong. You should give the people a chance to have the payment plan, not go to tax lien. Tax lien is a pain in the ass to get off. That's number one. Number two, I've refinanced my house since 2018. Now I know for a fact you cannot refinance your house if you have water bills. So any water bills that have been put on a lien, that's why I want to see the numbers, the dates, and all those things. So somehow I need to, you know, as far as I know, I'm into 1,400 last quarter that already went to lien this year, and 1,500 last year that went to lien. So I'm up to $3,000. So if I'm sitting here at a board meeting and you're telling me that nothing can be done, which is sort of the vibe I got, when you said we can't repopulate the numbers, at what point in time can we repopulate the numbers so that we can at least work on that end?
I honestly don't have the answer. Brooke, do you know if that is possible, going back that far?
I can definitely look into it.
I mean, honestly, this is going back previous administration.
I understand, I don't
We
listen.
wanna do everything that's right, we wanna straighten this out and come down, you know, find out exactly what the facts are. You know, just taking, like I said, looking at the paper, looking at how many zeros were there, how many 50s are there, it almost balances out. I mean, John is a math whiz, I'm sure he can run some numbers. It may not be 100% accurate, but, you know, again, it's ultimately a board decision on what they can and can't do, and there's rules and regulations in place. You know, you referenced how many days you have to dispute a bill.
Yeah.
You know, that obviously comes into play here as well. And, you know, as far as notification for a lien, it isn't something that we've had many residents fall into that. So
For a reason.
there hasn't been a process in place until just recently. That's what we talked about earlier here, when Paula was on, the board and, you know, the new management is now looking at sending out additional notices, you know, which would be a right letter, you know, saying that, hey, you know, we're giving you a demand notice, you've missed a payment, you've missed 2 payments, whatever it be, giving you the opportunity to make it right with our department before it goes through the lien process.
The only reason I'm here, and I even know about this, is because Paula called me.
Mhm.
On my cell phone.
Yeah, again, she is also new and she's doing things differently from the previous administration that had her spot. So she's going above and beyond to try and clear the liens because of the amount of work that goes on the town hall in order to just finish the liens and give people the opportunity to make amends and do it right.
I appreciate all your time, I really do. I appreciate your demeanor, your explanations. The most impressive thing I appreciate is you knowing how much water I've used since May 26th. So I appreciate that as well. I just want to find some way, if I own it, I own it. I have no problem, but I don't believe I do. All of it, I'm willing to take care of it, but I need to investigate it and I need your help because I have no way of getting anything else out of anybody.
Frank, I have a question.
This is all you.
On the zeros that would have generated a minimum bill, what is that number of units on the minimum bill? Was it called?
0 to 4 is considered the minimum bill.
So
0 to 4.
the bill would have been 4.
No, the bill would have been a dollar amount. So if the consumption is 0 to 4, that's considered a minimal bill.
Right.
And I believe at the time it might have been like 51 or 46 something at that time because the rates were different back then. So each zero that you see there would have been a minimum bill for water, you know, 42 and change, small amount of capital.
$42, you mean?
Yes. For
But
the,
what I'm trying to get at is what that amount of money would equate to on units of water used if it was a legitimate number. Like how much is one unit of water?
It varies depending on the amount of water that's
So-
used.
Okay, so it's
there's a tier system, so the
Tier
less
system,
water you
okay.
use, you reward it with a less cost.
But at a minimum charge.
But there is a minimum set.
I guess what I'm getting at is units of water wise, as far as it's charged, you were saying the 50 and the zeros kind of offset each other. Is that the amount that's charged units wise, is that low enough that that's actually true, that would come into somewhere around the 20s if your average was?
If it averages out that household based on his 2-week use of 3 units is equivalent throughout the full year, then it would probably roll in somewhere right around half.
But you're wrong,
A little
my
bit
friend.
less.
You're wrong, sir, because there's 10 zeros there. If you figure it at $50 on a zero bill, that's $500. I have $3,000 in liens.
Well, there's
So
10
you're wrong.
zeros because that's how far back the system goes.
It went
There could be
further than
more than that.
It can go any further.
Well,
I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out there.
and again, if you have liens on your house or you have water bills, when you refinance a house, they have to be paid. So either the mortgage company that's refinancing the house pays it, or I pay it before it gets refinanced.
Depending
So
on
even if this
process.
is the other administration, it's also past the time when I've refinanced my house recently. So regardless of that, this time limit right here is 10 zeros. At $50, that's $500, and I have $3,000 in liens on my house, and my quarterly rate is $372. If you take $372 in half, that's $180. It's not 46, man. Okay, so what I would like is some sort of response, some sort of investigation, some sort of process where I can be satisfied and you guys can move on from dealing with a citizen annoyance.
There's another issue here too, actually, that I think is important. Ken, you've basically said you haven't gotten a water bill.
No,
And I'm looking at 18 billing cycles here.
Yep.
So you're saying that 18 times we sent him the water bill and 18 times you did not
I
get it.
have not seen a bill since, geez, I cannot remember when, not when any of this stuff.
Do you have problems with the post office with any of your
I
own
get
regular
that.
bills?
No, I get mail 3 times a week. I usually don't get mail on Mondays.
So
and
18 times in a row, the post office somehow didn't
and
deliver
I knew
a
about
water
this
bill to
problem
your
in
house.
March, and there was a bill that was sent, and I've been looking for it.
So the bill hasn't been paid at all? How are you paying your bills if you're not getting a bill?
I haven't.
That's the problem. He's saying he hasn't received.
No, no, I
so
understand that.
no-
No, I understand.
I've refinanced my house at least 5 times in 20 years, and every time I refinance it, there's always been a water bill problem, and we've always finished it off then at that point.
Mhm.
And I haven't gotten a bill. And my wife pays that, and I don't see it. I pay the mortgage, she pays the bills, and whether she sees it or not, I don't ask. I don't know. Do you pay the water bill? No, I don't know. But when this came up, she said, "I haven't seen a water bill. I thought I thought it was included in the mortgage. No, it's not included in the mortgage. It's a utility."
Brooke, do you remember if there was any discussion about when that MLC came in? 'Cause I remember we had started to look for something on that too. For some reason, I thought Janice said that there was a payment made at the for the MLC to go through, but I can't.
Yes, so we received an MLC request December of 2019, which the amount of the water bill was provided, and then we received payment on December 31st.
That's when I refinanced my
That
house.
coincides with your refinance.
Refinance, yeah.
So the MLC that's requested by us, we will show any payments that are past due
Yep.
up to that.
Yep.
Anything outside
So that
of
was 2019.
Yes.
So we're in 2023, so I haven't paid a water bill in 4 years, basically. So why am I here sitting here bitching? I guess is what I'm asking.
Basically, that's where I'm getting at with
Right.
the amount of zeros and offsetting, what's been estimated. But we have no proof of how long that went on, other than knowing that there was a payment in 2019.
So at this point then, with that, I did not have that knowledge that you haven't been paid since 2019. So I guess what I would ask is, what isn't on lien? What do I owe at this present time? If someone could email me that,
I believe we have a copy of that. Is
that is not on lien,
I can give you this printout if you like.
that'd be wonderful.
But we do need to get to the bottom of why your you're not getting the actual mail.
So that-
Or the notices that are being left.
So this is not on link,
I'm sorry?
that part is not on link already, or it is
No,
on link.
it is not yet.
Is
You
that
have until
why?
December.
Is that to pay this?
Correct, yep,
Okay.
because we're still in this fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll stay like it is.
Until
Additional
December.
bills will be added to that if you don't get them or don't pay them. It would not go through the lien process until December, which is when the town takes over and does that process.
I'm just curious why she called me in March to let me know that it was going to lien. Does she already know that it was going to lien?
So that must have been the previous year.
So the 1,500, because this is included, when I say 3,000 in liens, I have 1,500 and I'm including this 1,400. So this is not on lien yet, the 1,400.
Correct. So
So I owe this plus any additional bills, one of which went out in March that I did not receive. Is there any option to have my bill emailed to me?
We can do that.
So can you see my email now?
Yep, we have your email.
You have my email, that's
Yeah.
right, you do, because you guys email me.
We do, yep, we can send
Okay.
that over for you tomorrow.
Can they do that on a consistent basis?
Sure, we can make it all.
I guess that's the solution to all the problems.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely wanna look into the billing department and find out why, for whatever reason, this address is being pulled.
And is there any abatement available to me on this 1,400 that's owed to me, knowing what the issues are?
Yeah,
To the board.
That's above you. That's on the board.
Considering that it says 272, 372, 372, and then it goes down to what, some are half and some look like normal rates.
Well, I think we need to, like you said, do our due diligence and get the numbers from.
Yeah, without
the best
knowing what the
numbers.
actual numbers are.
Okay.
And then we can,
So is there a process that we can go through to see if there's any available abatements to that 1,400 number? As I will start paying you some money monthly to get that down.
So the purpose I had this reading taken was obviously to verify a ballpark range of use over a very short window of time. So it's not a very good base to go on, it can be used as a guide. So maybe as an option,
We didn't take a shower for 2 weeks because I knew I was coming.
we set up some type of scheduled reading to get a track for maybe a month. But we obviously don't want it to go on too long because it's gonna continue to improve on this that isn't paid, but then maybe an adjustment could be made, based on a factual reading, now that this meter is operational, it works with our drive-by system.
Yeah.
It's a unique situation.
It's also unique in the fact that 90 times out of 100, the radio read box stops working, not the meter itself.
Right.
So, sir, your meter actually stopped registering. I saw the visual read on the screen. It was the same as the computer, which is not common at all. Usually it's the radio read that's sending the signal to the car doesn't work, and then we can actually get a visual read to actually see how much power he's used over the past 4 or 5 years. In this
But it's a
case,
new meter now, it's reading right, it's totalizing right, and everything's.
Yeah, I did take a day off to get it done, so I did lose money there as well.
I like that idea of taking some more readings over the next month or so,
Okay.
and seeing if they trend.
I have till December before this gets home, I'm gonna start paying it off immediately, so, in the process, I'm obviously not gonna pay it off in the time that you guys would do your due diligence for me, which I appreciate, it's extra work on your part, but I appreciate that very much if you do that for me. Everybody has my email, Steve has my phone number, so just contact me and
we're
I'll
on Facebook too.
yeah, man of many hats. But yes, I appreciate that and I really appreciate all your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Can I also just add one thing, sorry, before you go, so we use Unipay for our online payment center. If you set up an account, you'll receive reminders that the bill is ready to pay,
It's,
just to let you know.
I have enough to do with the mortgage.
That's
fine. She pays the bills and I wanna take this over, so like, paying Thursday, pay Monday. Thank you
Just thought I'd
guys.
throw it out
Thanks.
there. Have a
Appreciate
good
it.
night.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Meter number is it's not really,
It's not super accurate, right?
It's not, because,
Better than 2 weeks, is that what I'm
no,
saying?
it's, yeah,
I haven't had a chance to read what you were saying about the balancing of the numbers of what he's actually paid. Whether
I don't
it's fair
have
enough, I haven't had a chance to look at it.
As far back as our system goes, there's at least
Obviously, you don't pay water.
9 or 10 zeros. And we know it goes way beyond that, but our system only goes back so far. So if you take the amount of zeros and the amount of 50s and 55s, it cuts the whole number down in half, and it brings it into the range of a 20 to a 25. That's probably what his average usage is.
And there's more zeros than there are 50s or whatever, so.
That's all. I'm not, focusing on that's the exact amount, just, ballpark range.
Right.
If we came up with a number that we were pretty confident what his average usage was and calculated it all out, and it ended up being a little bit less than what you're saying he owes him, at that point, I don't think I would have a problem abating the
Yeah,
difference. But without seeing the actual numbers,
That's right, correct.
So that's something you guys can
Comes guesswork.
calculate for our next meeting?
Well, that hasn't been set yet, but yes. We can make a note of that, right, Brian?
Yes.
We'll pull it every week, just to.
Also, we hand deliver every bill that gets returned to sender. So
Does his get returned?
I don't know,
I
but
haven't seen
if
it.
so, it's been hand delivered for the last 4 years. So I mean, it's the mail's getting delivered somewhere.
At least that's a massive problem, because if he's not getting your bill, then but now we can,
I doubt the post office 19 times in a row didn't actually put the bill there.
Or more.
It's
I'm
getting
not
delivered
saying he's
somewhere.
lying, I'm just saying it would be odd for them to miss that one
But
for
at
4
least,
years in a row and not miss any other ones.
but at least we've crossed that bridge, so.
Yeah.
For going forward, at least he'll be
If they ever bring the camera, we can look. See if they- The first thing the police ask if you have a camera.
All right.
That was interesting. I don't understand how you get any work done.
It's a good question.
It's difficult.
I'm just saying.
Amongst everything else that goes on.
Alright, so moving right along to 21 Juniper Road, if I'm not mistaken.
That was just about the job.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think everyone on his face is pretty familiar with the situation. Pipes froze, massive leak, for probably a chunk of 5 months. That time's disputed by the owner of the property. All I know is that the meter was reading fine until December, and then it stopped reading, and then there was a massive leak. So I should say, the radio read box stopped sending signals. The meter was still running, but we stopped receiving signals, which leads us to believe pipes froze, electrical connection got fried out.
It was winter and nobody was living there, right?
Exactly. The house is abandoned. It's surrounded by a 5-foot picket fence, so 6 foot maybe. So you can't see it from the road. I went myself, shut the water off. Water was leaking out of the walls, and there was a huge puddle in the backyard. After getting contacted by the family's attorney, it was the usual run through of this is impossible, you don't know what you're talking about. We want to have the meter tested. Meter was tested, came back accurate within the allowable specs. We offered to let them have it tested if they want. It's still sitting in my office. It hasn't been tested. And basically it came up with a bill of north of $50,000. They came before the board last month. I wasn't here. It was either last month or the month before, and the board abated the sewer portion of the bill. After further talking with our counsel, and he's kind of led us to believe that the other lawyer didn't want to pay the whole amount. He had a certain amount of money from insurance, and this is what he wanted to pay on behalf of the family. He controls the money, and this is what he wanted to pay. That total was, as of right now, he has $30,000 in escrow. After talking to our attorney, he has led us to believe that the appeal board, that if we were to continue fighting this and pushing for the full amount that's owed to the department, the appeal board, A, is extremely sympathetic to homeowners, and we'd probably end up costing ourselves more in legal fees and whatever settlement the appeal board came before us with than what it would cost to take the $30,000 and basically zero out the balance. And we asked the attorneys to kind of come up with that number exactly so we knew what to discuss with you guys. We definitely want to make a stand as far as we don't want to set any precedents going forward. This is a very unique situation. And the sewer, you guys know you abated. We can't prove what went into the sewer. Can't prove what didn't go into the sewer either. But we also don't want to hamstring people completely.
Right.
So basically the number breaks down to, and obviously this is pending him actually cutting us a $30,000 check. The board, as of right now, the bill stands at $36,799.05.
And that's water, interest, and capital.
Correct. So, probably the cleanest option, and as to not abate any water fees themselves, the board would have to make a motion to abate $6,799.05 of capital charges. And that will leave the water fee, the minimum sewer fee that's been accumulated on this bill. Because there's minimum sewer charges related to the account.
Okay.
Water interest and sewer interest. So, I have a breakdown here. I don't know if you guys have the paper, but here's the balance right now of $36,799.05. They don't have that, okay. And basically, we're getting it down to $30,000.
And that's been an offer from them.
I haven't in email the discussion between the two lawyers. Obviously, if he had said in the conversation he didn't think that was a fair number, and he thought 15 to 20,000 was much more reasonable. And our attorney basically was like, "That's a non-starter. You have to offer all you have to settle this, or it's
Anything
not
less
going
than the
nowhere."
water usage charge is
Exactly.
non-negotiable,
So,
in my opinion.
our attorney feels like it's pretty, with it being a unique situation and the fact that it's actually kind of been negotiated between the two of them, that it's not really a precedent-setting decision, and we're not actually abating any of the water fees, we're just
Right.
abating capital.
Right.
So, and really, the board has a right to make any decision they want on any of the decisions they make. So it's not, even with, if someone were to say, well, you abated this for this huge bill, most bills aren't in the neighborhood of $50,000 to start, so.
Right, most of them, the capital would be $100 or something.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be.
So,
That's the biggest concern of mine with this.
right. So, there's a little bit of fluctuation with the interest, but after speaking with Brooke, as long as we receive a check in this month, she can set it so the interest stays the same and the pay date is today. When
If
this
it's in escrow, that should be able to
Right.
happen. It should.
What if we don't?
Well, if we don't, then we'll have to, not having ever been on a board, I don't know if we're willing, the board can say we're abating $6,799.05 off the total bill, or if you have to specifically say we're abating it off capital charges. I'm not sure
Is
how
that
exactly that has to work.
$67,9905 greater or less than the capital charge?
60s. Say that again, Jim.
The $6,799.05 that
That's-
they're asking us to abate.
There will be $58.90 left of capital charges after that.
Okay, so that's about, so
Yeah.
it's pretty much the capital charge.
Yep. Basically the whole capital charge. So that you would have the remainder of the capital, interest, and the water fee, and the sewer fee, the minimum sewer
Minimum sewer
balance.
fee.
And that would bring them current. This Brooke, this bill you gave me is with this past quarter's.
It does not have the new set of bills, the June.
It doesn't have the new set of bills. Okay.
But that bill's just gonna be a regular bill.
Those
That
will be
would be
going on the
official.
end of
So
the
this is just gonna address this particular bill.
So, not really sure how the motion needs to be made, if you guys even wanna make that motion. You know, and obviously it could be contingent on the fact that he doesn't try to say, well, actually, I wanna pay 25,000 instead of 30,000. The agreed amount's 30,000. That's the amount you would be acting on.
I'm inclined to accept that. I don't like the thought of setting precedents and waiving, you know, that's a big number to waive and have someone come back after the fact. And you had said that, you know, if it goes to arbitration or whatever, it's probably gonna side with it. If they were coming back and saying, no, we only wanna pay 10,000 and 15, and that's it, I would say, good, let it go to arbitration. And if we lose, we lose, but at least we stuck to our guns and we didn't set any kind of goofy precedent or anything like that. If they're willing to give us the 30,000, then that's gonna cover everything but capital. I don't know, what do you think, Steve? Maybe it'd be worth it to take that.
I think it would be, I think it's something that
If it puts this to rest,
we really
and-
kinda have to take it, to be honest with you, because it's gonna cost us more in the long run through litigation.
I agree, for this small amount, it's not worth it. Like I said, if they were hard-nosed about, no, we're giving 10 grand final offer, then I would say, good, let's go to court and lose. Because going forward, if we were caved to that, that would be a bad thing.
So the question is, what do you call the 679905?
Right, I don't,
Just discount the bill, that would be one thing.
Can we just make a motion to abate that number of the capital charge and call that the motion?
I would think, my question is, I don't know if you even have to
Saying the
say
word
capital.
capital charge.
I don't even,
okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, right.
Just keep the word capital charge out of it.
Right.
So we don't have to reference
Specific
30,000, we just have to reference that number off the final bill.
off the total of $36,799.05.
One more time.
Yes.
36,000.
$799.
So I'm making it easier, that's right.
I think it's $90.
Yes.
Oh, your windows are rolled
This
up.
is 21 units on the road.
Now rendering with it.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do this then. I would like,
Windows are okay.
Yeah, I hope that Tesla's alright.
My windows are automatically rolled up, so.
I would like to make a motion to waive $6,799.05 from the total bill of $36,799.05 for 21 Juniper Road.
Leaving the total.
Leaving the total owed at 30,000.
I second.
Should be,
Some,
nope. I just wanna make sure that this is due at.
Before the close of the fiscal year.
Which is-
I will add to that motion that this be payable before the close of the fiscal year.
I resecond.
That's all fair?
Aye.
Aye.
Beautiful.
The other word I was thinking about for the previous is adverse possession.
Oh, adverse possession.
If we've been, in reality, we could file adverse possession and shoot us a cent. Just like, throw that out there. The way that works is, if you don't know, if you have a parcel of land that you've been using for 7 years, and the person who owns the land have never told you that you're supposed to get off it or you're trespassing property or whatever else, you stayed silent. If you can demonstrate you've been on the property for 7 years, whatever that portion is, by law it comes to you.
It's been more than 7 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Way more.
And you just file adverse possession by doing a plan, you basically transfer the land to your possession, and there's not done any cost to do that.
I kinda like that.
How you write the law, it's back in the, I think it came over when the United States was formed. That was the law.
Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, I'm off tomorrow.
So if you own property and somebody's actually using it, the way you get around it is you give them a letter, certified mail, tell them they can't use the property, and then the adverse possession can never be applied.
Have we ever gotten a letter from the town saying we can't use that? I believe so.
I mean, that's just a constitutional thing, so.
Nice, very interesting. Okay, superintendent's updates.
My turn.
Late on that, huh?
Yeah, sorry.
Geez, nice.
So we did hear back from legal counsel a while ago. We had asked for clarification on the language in the sewer connection article, mainly because it affected a project that was before planning. After speaking to the council, they agree that the articles were written and leave much room for interpretation, and think that there should be some work in the future to correct the language to clarify both connections. They also stated that the way the language is in each of those articles to them indicates that it would be at the initial funding of the project. So if it was privately funded when it's being installed, the requirements will follow suit with that. And if it was municipally funded at the initial install, the requirements for connection will be based on that. They are concerned, as we were, about what happens in the future if a parcel of sewer property is acquired by the town, and that there shouldn't be any limitations placed on us setting, a time frame for people to connect, because we obviously had to expel a significant amount of money to purchase or, partially purchase the sewer infrastructure. So that's something we will need to work on in the future about correcting the language in each of those articles. It was something that wasn't probably thought of when those articles were split. But we have two parcels that are privately installed sewer. One is the Condyne project off of Leonard Street, huge, massive project. Sewer pumping station, probably a mile worth of sewer pipe. And the requirement when that was installed was leave extensions at the major intersections so that the town later, if need be or want to connect to it, would obviously use that portion of pipe or that sewer station, and then at some point, some type of money would be exchanged. They're not just gonna roll over and hand that, to the town. It just doesn't make sense financially for a corporation to do that. Basically, same thing with the Reservoir Street project. A small section of gravity main is gonna be installed so that that project can be used. If later there's additional connections that we wanna make to it, more than likely I would assume the same thing would be expected, is that we would somehow give some type of funding to that builder to offset the costs that they had to propose. So at that point, in my opinion, it changes the connection requirements, because now it becomes town owned and town funded, even if it's 50-50, 75-25, whatever the actual number is. So that's something we'll have to work on in the future. I know planning did request that we give some type of, or the board give some type of letter explaining your interpretation of the language as well as council. So that's something we will need to draft at some point. And I think it might just be easy to attend a joint meeting and allow them to throw some questions back and forth. We can explain our side of it and see if we can.
Sounds like at the end of the day, there's gonna have to be something at town meeting to change.
At some point, we're gonna have to work on the clarification of that article. Maybe there's something that can be done with each individual project where if you have, for instance, just use Reservoir Street, the contractor is already gonna provide stubs to the property. That's a requirement, before they do the road repair, is every home or separated lot that is buildable will be provided with a stub. Maybe there's some type of money set aside in an escrow account that'll help pay for existing dwellings to connect and offset their construction charge if they're required to connect within a certain time frame. Something, put it on the builders. If these people want to come in, they want to have growth in town, it shouldn't be on the resident that's lived there for 20 years and maybe their septic system is perfectly fine. I think that's where the planning board is looking at it from a different angle. Not so much that we don't want to promote sewer system growth. We just don't want to make sure that it burdens the residents who have lived there. Not only now are they going to have to deal with this huge impact of having a subdivision in their backyard, but also know that within a certain time frame, they have to come up with this extra money. So maybe that's something we can work on, come up with some type of mutual agreement and maybe some language, that basically if the contractor wants to come in, basically force these type of things into areas where they previously weren't. Maybe they can also be held to some responsible amount for monetary coverage.
Going forward, that sounds like a good idea. It doesn't affect Reservoir Street and Condyne though, right? Because it's already been
Those are,
agreed on.
Reservoir
Reservoir
Street
Street
has
was
not.
Condyne.
Condyne is existing, so that would be something that would have to be addressed, if and when we look to make a connection to that system at whatever point in time.
So what would be prudent, going forward to get this done? We should probably get this done sooner than later than,
I would say sooner than later, we can see if we can, if John has time tomorrow or Friday to reach out to planning and see when the next meeting is. See if they're willing to meet
How
with
often do
us.
they meet? Do they once a month too?
Do not know, honestly. Maybe we can set something up before our next meeting.
Okay.
If they're not available and they wanna wait till our next meeting, we can invite them here.
Yeah.
We'll see what we got for options available, but yeah, it'd be nice to get on
we can
that.
draw something up and maybe they got some views that we're not seeing.
That we're not seeing
Yeah.
yet. Yeah, exactly. Let's see, alright, we talked about the sewer department land. Distribution system flushing. We actually finished for the first time in about maybe 5 years. We actually finished the spring flushing program without running out of water, running into a drought,
Yeah.
mechanical errors, anything of that nature. So the nighttime portion was finished on May 25th. We continued with the daytime portion up until last week, June 9th or so. The majority of the daytime flushing was actually to go back because we couldn't get our vehicles close enough to the hydrants in some of the areas where cars are parked at nighttime, or if we wanted to shoot the water, there was cars parked. We didn't want to take any chances, so those were left. We went back afterwards, took care of those. We also met with the plumbers at Wheaton College. We'd spoken with them in years prior, wanting to get into the heart of the campus and flush hydrants that basically aren't near any drains. Have problems with getting water flow to them just because they haven't been turned in so many years. So we were able to get that done as well. There was some pretty nasty water in there. Some of the plumbing inside the campus goes through multiple buildings and hydrants are tagged off of them, so it was a huge benefit to get that done. Right now, Wheaton only has one plumber, so we had to work around their schedule to get it done, hoping not to clog up any of the
Is that
flush
some-
outlets.
Is that an annual thing that you gotta do every year for them? You do for them?
We typically try and do all the hydrants twice a year. We haven't been able to do the ones inside the campus. These were additional. There was some major concerns about where the water would go and the timing of the events. So with the water quality that we had in years prior, we had attempted to flush one of them. The hydrant was seized. They had to replace it. Right before one of the commencements, they had a truck actually backed over a hydrant, broke it off at the lateral, and flooded the entire campus, so we didn't have to flush that yet. So now that we're trying to get back into a rhythm and get these hydrants done and work with the plumbers there, everything is moving a lot better. So it's been a welcome change. The amount of time it took to do the entire town was also, pretty impressive with the water quality the way it was. And speaking of improved water quality, the THM HAA5 samples taken in May were all below the limit once again. Because we've had multiple quarterly sample rounds below the limits, we've actually now lowered our LRAA, which is Steve's favorite wording there, locational annual average.
Yeah.
So now we do not require any public notices to go out. We expect the flushing of the system that we've now basically become very well known with, isolating and flushing, to continue until we possibly get the aerator in at the Cottage Street tank. Then we may look at possibly laying off on some of the additional flushing just to prove that installation of the aerator is actually working. But I'm also if it isn't broke, don't change it type thing. So we may still just flow some water just to be safe. The next round of samples is due in August. We don't expect to see numbers as low as we did this quarter based on the temperature of the water, but we surely don't expect to see them how they were last year. So again, I don't anticipate any exceedances moving forward from now on. So again, no public notices will be required for that. Our manganese notice, unfortunately, will be going out in July, which is going to be like that, for entirety. Well one, again, hovers at or above the level for manganese. And regardless of how little we use it, as I mentioned multiple times before, notice is required to satisfy DEP.
And raw water.
Yes. With a blended system, we don't see numbers anywhere close to that with the samples we take in the system, showing that the blend is accurate and there is no effects of it. And it's just an unfortunate paperwork problem, I believe. One thing I did want to talk about is, as you guys know, we've gone over, John, myself, Brooke, and Janice, copies of rules and regulations, things that were lacking, bringing things up to current standards, adding language to the Department of Rules and Regulations for both water and sewer. I found another section that's in there that you may recall being here as long as you have. It's listed under our fee schedule, and it's actually listed as private fire protection. And there's a fee of $100 per hydrant that will be billed in advance for all private hydrant maintenance contracted with the department. That's exact wording from the website.
That's a yearly fee, right?
This has not been ever implemented in the 23 years that I've been here. There's been discussion about
I
it.
brought that up to you when I.
When you first, right. So there was discussion with the previous superintendent and the one prior to that we were going to or supposed to be charging $50 per flushing sequence when we go out and we work in private infrastructure. What happened,
Such as we.
like Wheaton or Red Mill for example, is when we do our flushing program, we don't physically flow every fire hydrant. We can't. There's physically not enough time to complete the program. What was talked about back when I had started is to possibly have the flushing crew go out, do the hydrants they need to, and then either after the flushing program was over or during it, if we had the staff, go back and physically operate each and every hydrant on private property, generate a report, generate a $50 bill for each one that was flowed. The language here where it says contracted with the department is what is got a little wheel turning in my head. I don't remember ever seeing a contract or if there was ever one implemented for each private entity.
Is that what the inference is? Is the physical contract?
It says maintenance contracted with the department. So
This
it
becomes
sounds
the department and whatever physical.
in the private entity, right? That there would have to be some type of actual written contract, more than likely listing the number of hydrants, and that they do agree to pay the fee, providing we go in there and flush and inspect the hydrants, not maintain them because they're private. We can't work on private property. So that's kind of where the gray area is in my head, is that I've never seen a contract. I've only
What
worked
kind of
out.
recourse do we have to get that money, or, a bill is, do we
Right.
add it to their bill, or?
More than likely, because it says paid in advance, so it would sound like something that would be paid either at the beginning of the fiscal year or at the beginning of the calendar year, whatever, other fees may be due to the department. But, that's gonna be a huge impact on places, like Red Mill, the amount of hydrants that they have there. But I also believe that, and I could be wrong, but their insurance carrier would want to know that every fire hydrant in there is operational, as just like they do with the fire suppression systems. It's a part of a fire suppression life safety device. So
I would think.
it makes sense, but again, I don't know that because I'm not in that area. But I don't know if Mansfield did anything like that, or
So my experience, that other towns, cities and towns, I imagine you have heard about this. It's not uncommon that all private fire hydrants, and whether or not they're tested or not tested, whether or not anyone even touches them, there's a fee, a yearly fee on it.
That's what we have.
Period. This contractor thing, I don't even know what that means. Yeah, doesn't mean that language. I know what it means, but I'm never heard of it.
it just sounds like it'd be an agreement between the private entity and the department that, they agree that we will be going in there, providing basically a check of the device.
But moving forward in the planning board and the projects that they approve, it should be part of the
It should be
language
part
of the approval that private fire hydrants shall be subject to a fee as per the water regulations. I mean, that's what that should be. It should be automatically so people know
Right.
what that
Ahead of
is.
time, yep.
It'd be interesting to know, we have a map that shows all the fire hydrants.
A basic one, yeah.
A basic
It's-
one,
It
right.
needs some updating.
Do we know which one's the public, better question, does the fire department know public and private? Or they don't care, they even
They
care?
probably don't care as long as they work.
Alright, so do we have one that's public, know that which one's the public and private, more or less?
The employees here would be able to depict which ones
I
are.
think we should generate a list of, I think for database, I mean, you can't build out anything yet because you don't have enough information, but it'd be nice to know. Yeah, I could count the number of ones that read
Right.
the bills,
Also,
and I could probably count the ones that have weekends. It'd be an interesting walk to figure that one out.
I know in Mansfield, the philosophy of a fire department is that they don't touch any hydrants like it's say a building, a big building. There's fire hydrants all around the building. They won't touch the hydrants on the property. They'll run hoses from the street because they don't want to take away from their internal system in case there's a problem. That's their philosophy. Whether that's still their philosophy.
You mean when they're fighting a fire?
Correct.
So we don't have any idea, I mean, in Revdale Village, they would have no choice but to use the.
Right, that's a different situation though. I mean, that's
And Wheaton, I imagine, it's the same thing, they would have to use Wheaton's fire hydrant.
So we are saying if the
Working
property's small enough, they can catch it off the street, they just do that.
Yeah, they don't wanna do anything to that loop that's around that building.
Yeah.
If it loops, and they don't wanna compromise the system that if it's already on, and fighting fire inside, they don't wanna compromise that, so they'll run it from the street and string it from the street with pumpers. That's been their philosophy for quite some time, I don't know if it still is.
Yeah, let the suppression
That would
system
make-
work the way
That
it's
would make
supposed to.
sense.
I mean,
But when you watch a Chicago fire on television or what's the other one? They don't really show you how they hook up the fire hydrants, other than the fact that they have water thrown on the fire. And the building burns to the ground.
Producer doesn't know that.
They say that.
The talking about contracts between the water department and whatever private subdivision, whatever, is that something we would want as far as like liability that would protect us in case, because if there's nothing written down, then they come to us and say, hey, you trashed our fire, someone knocks a fire hydrant over, they blame it on us. There's
Well,
nothing.
right now, if we go into private developments and we utilize their hydrants for flushing purposes, and to maintain, water quality, if we find a deficient hydrant, we notify either the association, the entity that is in charge of it, and, let them know that it's out before we can bag it, because we don't want the fire department responding and know that,
Right.
the private entity isn't gonna put it out of service. This is just unique in something, that I know has been talked about since I've been here, but never really been implemented. If this is being done even in a percentage right now, we're basically not getting paid for the work that we're doing. We could do much better with getting this completed, actually have a hydrant inspection form, with a physical address, physical location, and that information could be passed along not only to the person that owns the hydrant, but to the fire department. We were here on XYZ, this hydrant worked fine, or this hydrant's deficient. We're notifying, them, that they have to do some repairs. Because unfortunately, people are gonna listen to the fire department much more than they listen to us. So, it's something I think we really should look into. I just didn't know about the wording of that contracted with the department thing, so I didn't know if Mansfield had contracts or if it's just automatically assumed.
No.
And if that's the case, we're gonna have to generate letters.
We could check other regulations, but I think I sent you Dedham, you can easily check what Dedham is, but I do
don't
not
think
believe the
contract.
word contract, that language after the private side.
Okay. What type of leeway do we want to give all of these entities? We're not gonna go out there now and say, hey, just because it's in our regulations, you owe us, $15,000, $20,000 because you get this many hydrants. I think we should
Well, it would be a
apprise them-
situation going forward, we
Right.
might back
We should-
charge them for that.
apprise them of the regulations and that it's there, and that we're gonna start this process, and we'll generate reports, try and get a little bit of a report going back and forth, contact persons, email addresses, so we can possibly just send this over, the reports in email and actually move forward. I just don't think we can just automatically say, and hand them a bill.
Alright, so
You know what I'm
speaking on behalf of Red Mill Village, we set our budget in November
Okay.
of a fiscal year which starts January first. So I imagine Wheaton College is similar. I mean, the fee that we charge, the town got for testing our sprinkler systems, we actually budgeted so that when we got the bill, we just pay it.
That's what I'm worried about.
I mean, you just have to catch it's like us. We get a throw a bill in mid-cycle, was kind of screwed because we don't have the money, we have to go back to the cycle.
Exactly.
I mean, a town meeting or something, we get the money. So I would think if we generate a list, figure out what we're talking about for number of fire hydrants, get all the documentation as to where we're gonna send all this to. Red Mill Village is simple, it's the same place you send the bill to. Which is, I believe, Great Mill, our property manager. But I would think we could send a notice to everybody that we're implementing this in fiscal year 2025.
So that was thinking, yeah, give them.
And then tell them
Frame
what the
time.
cost is gonna be and they'll budget accordingly.
Okay.
And to tell you the truth, just have to deal with it.
I take my contract right out of there, cause that's just not
Yeah.
something.
I mean, we can change the wording if we want, but, you know.
Okay, that's the answer I was looking for, just trying to figure it out. I mean, it's definitely some legwork on our side that we have to do
Yeah, I was
first.
surprised when I read the regulations that we're charging people for it out, and again, from being a Red Mill Village trustee, I knew we were getting charged for it.
Very good.
I think they're gonna be too happy for me to actually bring this forward to them. Maybe keep my name off the letter. Or maybe they'll be end up being trustee. Okay, maybe you can do it either way, it doesn't really matter.
And wells and water treatment facility update. Monday, May 22nd, we lost the use of our well 3 location on Newland Street. The pump had actually failed. We called out our well company. They were actually out there. It was a very fast turnaround. They were out. They had the pump in stock. The pump was actually good. The bottom of the motor actually rotted out and broke. So they had to just do a motor on that. Pretty simple. While it was out, we cleaned the pump. Acid washed it, put it back in, and that well was sampled. Put it back on the line May 30th. And then,
That's great.
while I was out, June 8th, we lost well 4. That one was scheduled for cleaning, barely producing any water, unfortunately. So it's not a huge loss to us. It is still down. We have Frank Sullivan scheduled to come out hopefully the last week of the month to take that apart for cleaning. So now we're just going to have the additional expense to replace that motor, and we'll move forward with there. Where we haven't heard anything else about the auction clause money for the funding. We did get approval at the town meeting for the full amount of doing that well, so that is in the process of being done. This cleaning was just because the well had clogged, and it wasn't going to limp along until we would start any other processes. So, being that the weather's been
So it should
fairly
be
nice,
cleaned?
it will be cleaned, and the pump more than likely will be replaced.
Do you know how old that infrastructure is?
That's not that old. That was replaced when the treatment facility went online with a low head pump, so that's 2020. That pump has been in. It's under more strain than the others just because of the iron and manganese concentration at that location. So the lower head pump has to really fight to move the thicker water, let's say, before it gets to the treatment facility. You want to talk about the filter? Okay. All right, and then I'll jump over to the last thing. If anybody's trying to get a hold of us, after Wednesday, June 7th, we've actually lost all communications here, Wi-Fi, internet. Come to find out, there was a wire that was low hanging on John Scott down there, Prosser excavation. It was clipped by a dump truck and severed. Come to find out, it was a fiber wire that connects us to the town server. They came out, inspected it, they actually got us back up online around 11 o'clock on Friday. They're more than likely, because there was no police report, no incident report, and nobody wants to say who did it, it's gonna probably come back on us for the repair. We are trying to put it through the insurance to see if they will, cover it and
Any red doorbells in that area, maybe?
Yeah, I don't think there is.
dump truck?
Allegedly.
allegedly.
Well, it's not the Jimmy.
So, I have conversation going back and forth with our insurance carrier. We explained to them that it has been repaired. We have the cost of the repair is right around the $15,000 mark. And, they're gonna send an adjuster out, look at the area, look at the damage, see if they can figure anything out. And if we get lucky, we just have to pay a deductible. If not, we may be on the hook for the actual repair.
And that's a dedicated line, just our dedicated line?
That's our link between two.
What was it that was hit? Is it just like one of the electrical
Fiber
boxes?
optic.
It's a fiber optic cable. So there was a line that was called in, looking at the fire log, they were called Monday morning around 7:30 to a down wire in that same area.
So it's on a pole.
Yeah, so they responded, couldn't find any wires down. We were told that there was a low hanging wire and somebody had actually tied some caution tape on it so that the vehicles coming and going from the excavation lot there would be aware of it.
Okay, so this wasn't a pole.
No,
the
no,
wire
it
that
was a
snapped in the
wire.
air and ripped out.
Somehow it fell, whether, I don't know if it's a maintenance issue, if it was, previous storm damage and it finally sagged to a
So it's
point.
$15,000 to reconnect the wire?
Fiber optic.
Fiber optic.
Or fiber optic.
Yeah.
A miserable exercise.
Yes, that is. Yeah. And a day and a half to do it. So,
We'll just wait and
That's
see.
why in dig safe, we usually dig safe a property because we don't really care about the water main, we care about the fiber optic.
it's a lot more money.
That's all your guys' experience,
Well, there's
that's our
the
experience.
trunk line from Canada down to, internet. It's big for the entire
Yeah.
northeast, yeah.
So the odd part is our phones would take voicemail. So when people called in, it would ring and go to voicemail. People could leave us everything. We couldn't access any of that
Right.
until late on Friday. So we did field a few calls from irate residents that weren't understanding of the situation. But we weren't blowing anybody off. We weren't having a party. We were down and we actually had
Well,
broke
it's
out
not
to
a
go back
very
to town hall to work.
Not a very reliable system in retrospect.
If it isn't broken, it's reliable.
I'm just saying, I don't know where it goes. Where's the fiber optics go?
Back to town hall. It runs here to Charlie. Charlie passes schools up to town hall. We have the repeat server down here.
It's all above ground the whole way, right?
I don't know if it's above ground yet. I think until the corner of our trailer
Yeah.
goes on the ground, but
On the streets.
so
Interesting.
that's all I have, guys.
Alright, moving on to Weston and Sampson. Real quick, I'm sure.
Alright, yeah.
Just kidding.
So to add on to it, the treatment plant, last meeting we discussed briefly that, over the last several months, the operators have noticed a little bit of a deficiency with one of the filters. We discussed, with Frank before we went on vacation that we were gonna bring in our sub-consultant to just do an assessment, optimization review, check it out, just see what's going on. He had to pop by the site, kind of just did an initial view and then, basically provided us with a proposal to do the work. So, I talked with John, and previously with Frank, so we have money left in our, general services annual agreement. It's for $50,000 every year. We usually don't use it all. We had about, 17,000 or so left in the budget for that. The total cost, was about, we did have to do a little bit of modifications when we were putting the media back in. But it was kind of coming out to about like $23,000. So the thought was to put an amendment together to increase the value, which James at Town Hall had suggested to from 50,000 to 55,000, increase it and just go forward. So I have a copy of the amendment on my computer. I did not print it. So I'm hoping that we can just kind of vote on authorizing Frank to sign an additional $5,000 for amendment number 1 to the general services.
So we've never come close to the $50,000?
I mean, on occasion we have, but typically, it's for meetings, attendance at the meetings, if we do any developer reviews, so drinking water separate from wastewater. And then kind of the third task is anything you guys want us to do.
But
So-
are we anticipating?
It ends in 2 weeks, so no.
Oh, okay.
It's a
So
fiscal
we
year.
have to,
So it's okay
we
to
have to
ask
execute
someone's
a new
wanted to-
contract for next fiscal.
Yeah, so and it's basically, budgeted through your operating budget, so,
Alright.
So I can also.
So it's like an insurance policy.
Yes.
It covers, so we don't have to do individual little $5,000 contracts, but in this case, we had the money in the budget, we might as well just use the existing contract to amend it, make it easier, and just process it, get this guy out. So, a lot less paperwork, we actually had him come out last week, knowing that we had the budget anyway. They got in there, spent a few days at the treatment plant, did an assessment. The initial installation, it does look like, that
What do they have to do?
So we were concerned that there was an issue with the under drains and concerns with the potential, I remember years ago, we saw a little bit of media in the clear wall.
Yeah.
It's from this filter. So the installation, the thickness of the bed for the stone bed was not thick enough when it was first put in. And then, you put the green sand on top of that. So there's just a little bit of a concern. So some of the media slipped out and it's been kind of rattling a little bit and leaking a little bit of
Do you have to remove the media or then?
To do the assessment last week, they pulled all the media and stone out, and then reinstalled the proper bed size and depth. I'm not sure if, actually I didn't check in with Derek if he put it back online, but yeah, so, it was clear what the issues are. So the good news is that there's no deficiency and that the vessel itself looks good. There's no issues with the under drains. It was just more of the actual stone bedding was the wrong. We need another stir. I think it was like 6.
So the other vessels are fine then, right? I'm assuming.
They're performing as we believe they should. This one all along had been a little bit different. Water quality was different, the way it would settle out when you take the samples after having a regen was always longer than the other 5. And it got to a point where we did a manual regen on it, thinking that for some reason that one was capturing more of the manganese and it just wasn't cleaning. It didn't work. That's when we started talking with Tara. We brought in a specialist. We actually had somebody else look at it prior. Their rough estimate, I don't know if I had mentioned it, but it was right around $80,000. That would have been taking out all of the media, going in, looking at whatever was damaged and replacing all of the media. The specialist that was recommended that we used had a contraption that he was able to recycle the media and actually take it out and capture it into containers, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's a couple years old.
Right.
Put that back in after adding more stone so that the under drains were covered the way that they should have been in the beginning. This starts all the way back at when it was built. It was probably the last filter that was done. It's to run, if you remember looking at the building, there's the transparent wall. It's the filter in the center. So more than likely the last one that was done. And, for whatever reason was short on material covering the under drain.
So that makes sense actually.
It has been,
It was the last one was done then.
it has been rectified. Obviously they should have just got more material,
Yeah.
but
Is that Green Sand Plus?
Mhm.
Do you need permanganate to regen there? Or was the water quality that bad, or do you just use chlorine?
we use chlorine to try and regen it when we did the manual, but we use permanganate. There was significant removal there
No, I know
because of well fall. But
because the plants that we have, we just use chlorine except for the one that's up on Gilbert Street. And the quality is so bad, and it's almost surface water, really.
Yeah.
But
when this was designed, it was before the wells were replaced. So now the water quality has changed for the better. So there's a possibility we can relax a little bit on the permanganate amount that we're using. I don't know if we'd ever switch to chlorine, but it's something we can think about in the future. If well field is relocated and the water quality from that changes drastically, then we may see some options come available to us. But because the wells were replaced after the plant was built, you kind of dealt with what you had at the time.
Yeah, well, and they will
They're gonna
It will
clog.
fade,
Oh, yeah.
but, so the long and short is, we'll have a summary report with some photos and we can provide them all, when that comes in, but we wanted to get in and get that done, just, not wait till, next fall or so, and the guy was available to come out in a week and a half, and we just got him on board, so, we do recommend, and I'll get some proposal, costs from him, but we would recommend that periodically having the filter specialist come out and just kind of check, not every year, but if you have any issues, he can come out, but also maybe every 2, 3, 4, 5 years or whatever. Just to kind of take a look at it, pop the hood and check it.
I think we should include it as a preventive maintenance.
Yeah, just preventative maintenance. We can look at the distance and the drop of the media and give us a good idea of how much it's being expended over time. So now we had a baseline before, now we have a new baseline for this filter, and we can measure the other filters and just see how they're.
So you have your own, did you pour samples and stuff like that too?
You can, but very, if you're gonna keep your own records, I highly recommend the operators just kind of check it out. So when the filter's offline, pop the lid and just take measurements and keep track of it yourself. But then every few years, have specialists come out and just, chat a little bit about things, but really, he didn't see anything, his crew didn't really see anything of major concern, but long term, maybe 15, 20 years, that's a different story, but, over the next, 3 to 5, there's probably nothing much, but if you see similar, if there's an issue, but we've had the plant running for, 3.5 years or so, that was the only filter that we really noticed a little bit of, just hoping that there wasn't anything major, which, hey, good news, it was just a,
So you're gonna draw up the paperwork for this, well, if we.
I have it, it's in my computer, I can email it over, but, I was proposing to, have the board vote on the change so we can get it into James.
So what are we specifically voting on to add 5,000 to?
To approve the amendment, for the general engineering services for drinking water, FY '23, increase it from 50,000 to 55,000 and provide Frank with approval. I think he didn't sign anything anyway, but.
That's already been approved, but can we add John to sign in my absence?
I think I'm already,
Just in case.
I was pretty sure I was approved to sign anything.
If I agree, so, but isn't it hard to say it?
That's true.
Absolutely, so I make a motion to approve an additional $5,000 to the general engineering services contract with Weston and Sampson for a total of $55,000 for amendment 1, and allow Frank and John to sign for it
this fiscal year.
for fiscal year '23.
Correct.
I second.
All in favor?
Thank you. So, hang on with that.
So we got your email today about FY
I couldn't
'24.
remember.
We normally do it kind of the start of July.
Okay.
Do you need that now, or, because I guess we can propose it, but, our
So-
language doesn't change, but. Did you get yours done?
No, I did not get mine done. I didn't sneak into that. So for this meeting, we're still in FY '23. If there's a meeting, the next meeting after June is done will be the next fiscal year. So I would intend that we'll send our annual agreements for the 50,000 that's in the budget, right? For the water and sewer, and you guys can vote on them and hopefully sign them at the next meeting. Because when we come to the next meeting, we'll be billing in the next
Okay.
fiscal year.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
So that's okay that will be in the next fiscal year
I think
before it
that's-
happens?
yep, that's how we
Yeah,
done it.
won't be a weekend of it in the summer.
We either bring it at the end of the month in June or the first one in July,
That's
so
fine.
now that we're once a month,
Works for me.
we won't be billing until the end of July anyway, so.
No, there was just some question because the POs for FY '24 are being filled out and signed now and sent out to town hall, so paperwork can be started on it. So just because for some reason I had thought we had already seen these, it must have been a contract or something else. So that's how this question started.
Yeah, no, we have not. I know,
If you
but
have
Steve
them-
hasn't either, so.
If you have them, you can get them over to us.
Yeah,
It might
Yeah,
simplify
Same.
things.
but it would be just another, the standing
It's
of
the
the last, 10+ years has
It
been
has been.
50,000 for each. So that kind of covers the treatment plant. The only other item of business I really had was the White Street water main improvements. Since last meeting, the final paving has been completed, and I do have a final pay estimate to close out the project with Gravity Construction. So this is Weston Sampson's recommending payment of $58,403.16 for pay estimate number 2 for the White Street area water main improvements project.
Is that paid 100% or is it?
It's 100% releasing retainage, so this is the final.
And this is to who?
Gravity Construction.
Okay.
So this is their meeting at Windmill Village, they did an excellent job, they cleaned up the mess at the corner, they loaned and seeded it, which I didn't expect.
Oh no, that's not much.
No, I
They're very,
had no expectations, like, I'm just saying, no, with what they did a very good job.
they're a good contractor and if, something, I don't know if it all washes away right now, but
Right. I don't think it's
let us know, but
I
they'll,
don't think it's germinated yet, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
I haven't really talked over that. It's only across the street from me.
I was gonna ask if they cleaned up the stone pile on the corner where the stop sign is and the other miscellaneous stuff. I wasn't sure who owned that pile, if it was the contractor that built the house or if it was ours. Because I haven't been back that way to see that area, so.
I'll have to go check and but yeah, the house contractor did have some
Some
stuff
material.
in here and there, but.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve pay estimate number 2 for the White Street area water main improvement projects to Gravity Construction for the amount of $58,403.16.
The second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's
it.
these are the past ones. So the bottom, yeah, we're at 3 lines. Uh, 14.
14.
John Lee Trump's birthday.
No, I'm just gonna share that one, Mar-a-Lago tonight, whatever it's called.
I tell you, it's a fact.
Is that who you play golf with today?
Yeah, I don't think so.
What's your handicap, Steve?
Why don't you go?
Light always wins.
No fun that way.
Thank you. Thanks, Darryl.
Is it?
I'm all set.
Nice, short and sweet.
Alright, so on the sewer, on Elm Street, we're moving into the design on that. And actually, Frank, since we talked today, I was told that the emails came through that the amendment has been signed. So we're still, with the 2 different grants that we had, there was some back and forth with the granting agencies and trying to clarify what the 2 different grants and how they were going to administer the 2 of them. It was a little bit of a pain, several meetings, but it seems all worked out now, so we'll be able to get reimbursed through the grant program. And also the grant application for construction monies was submitted. So we should hear in October, November timeframe whether it qualifies for construction monies for that work.
What type of grant is that?
MassWorks. MassWorks infrastructure. The same program that's funding the design. So that's moving along. We're gonna hopefully pick up the pace on that soon. Start getting some information together so we can start getting the word out to the powers that be. Ahead of that.
So the design is underway, but you haven't started your permits.
Correct.
And it doesn't, so it's probably notice intent, we review the drawings, anything else? Mass Highway?
Snow highway, and any weapons, I mean, we're in the street, so it should be minimal weapons.
Right.
So it should be.
The railroad, is that the where the railroad is? No, that's not there, no, not railroad.
No.
Yeah. So, Elm Street, so, I'm sure you know, not all state highways are numbered.
Correct, yep.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah,
Some numbered roads are state highways too.
right, that is correct, just to let you know, so normally the GPW keeps a record of the roads which are town owned and state roads. So I'm gonna just make sure you check it.
We double check.
How do I know this, you may ask? I found out the highway. I guess I tell you.
Yeah,
A little embarrassing when that happens.
So the other project that we need to talk about is Cobb Street. So the generator is being installed. So the generator was delivered, much anticipation. It's there.
I can't believe I'm hearing these words.
So it's over the next few weeks, they'll be wrapping that up. So right now, they've got a temporary generator. They pulled the old generator out, delivered it, loaded it on a truck for you guys, Frank. You guys have that, because the generator still works, it's just old, so we still have it.
We have any use for that?
We're actually gonna take some parts off for another dinosaur that we have that we're nursing along.
And so they put it on a temporary generator and they've got the new generator set, and they just, over the next couple of weeks, get it wired up. I think June 27th currently is the target. They have the company coming out to do the startup and do the training on the new generator. So hopefully at the end of the month, the generator will be. We did, in conjunction with doing the generator, they're doing electrical work in the wet well, basically just replacing, adding some lights in the wet well. And they have submitted a change request for the work again. So basically they're under contract to add lights in the wet well. When they got in there to look at really getting going on the work, they determined that it's not just connecting to the conduits that are there to add the new lights. They are concerned that all the wiring in the wet well needs to be replaced, and that's what they want to do. They're not comfortable connecting to the wiring that's there, and they can't, in their opinion to us, or whether it's real or not, they can't leave it the way it is. They have to bring it into code. And I've had discussions with Frank about this, and Steve, I saw your email too. I know we've had some emails on it. They're currently, so we've gone back and forth quite a bit with Fall River Electric on it, and we're continuing. We're not done with our back and forth. So they're at like $6,000 right now for the work, which is a good chunk, a decent chunk of money. It's $195,000 job, a $6,000 change. I guess the real question is it legit? And should they have known? Did the drawings certainly didn't tell them they had to replace all the wiring. They told them that they had to wire the new lights. And so their claim now basically is that they want to go in and replace everything and bring it into code and make it all good. So Frank, I don't know if you want to add anything, because we've had some back and forth.
We went back and forth, but I'm not too happy with the lack of investigation in the initial part when they had opportunity to enter the wet well, physically look at things up close. They chose not to, for whatever reason, confined space, smell, difficulties, whatever it is. But my thought process is when you're coming out to do an estimate on a job for something that we're asking you to come out because we've noticed deficiencies, they as a professional, you would think would want to have a really good idea of what they're getting into, because how can you put an accurate bid together? A few of the items they mentioned, over the course of the years, we had what's called the muffin monster down there. Basically, it grinds all of the waste product before it goes into the pumps to keep the pumps from getting clogged or damaged. The conduit that feeds that is the rubber, hard, flexible conduit called Liquid-Tight. It was installed, it was inspected by the town's inspector, and it passed. That's one of the issues they're saying isn't up to code. I don't know if they're following a different code, or maybe codes have changed over the time from when that was put in. That just doesn't set well with me, because you can see that from the hatch.
What code? Town's code or
Electric.
Electric.
code? So is it
I don't know if it's
one
national
supersedes the other?
I don't know.
I think, I get all that. It would be a good thing to upgrade it. It's definitely old.
I think it works, and it definitely could be better. The problem is what they consider better, we as the average person consider inferior. So code wants all metal conduit, all metal boxes. It's in the most corrosive environment that you could ever ask for. So you're going to be replacing this in another 10 or 15 years. It's already been done twice before. This will be the third time that electrical upgrades have been done in that wet well because of the environment. So when you put a flexible tube in there that's made out of rubber, plastic, whatever, it's going to outlast the environment. But that's not technically code, apparently. So I'm not one to say who's right or who's wrong. I get it. If there's certain regulations in place that certain products must be used based
But
on
doesn't
the
make
environment. I know.
Has there been an electrical inspector look at it?
When the Muffin Monster was installed and it was rewired, it was inspected.
In the past,
It did.
obviously.
Yes. Now, whether it was not supposed to, whether code has changed, I don't know. So the other issue is that there is more than one pair of wire in that conduit. So there's a power wire feeding it, so you probably have 3 wires come in, or 4 wires because it's high voltage. You have a signal wire that's also in there. So if you have a fail, it lights up the annunciator panel, it calls the SCADA. They want those to be separate.
Separate conduits.
So this is where you're getting into adding multiple conduits, additional wires that, may or may not belong in the same conduit.
Yeah, they want to replace the conduits in metal,
Yes,
right, sewage environment
yes.
with corrosive gases.
That we can't get out of. We've tried arguing with everybody about that, and that seems to be a code thing. It's an explosive proof fixtures that are required on it because of the environment. So I can kind of understand why you wouldn't want something that could melt if there was a fire, but this,
I would say
It's
local
strange.
jurisdictions just like water, you can be stricter, you can't be less strict, so.
although I'm not happy with the number, I think
Tell me if there's a fire in the wet well, that the metal will protect the conduit at 3,000 degrees. I'm just wondering, if there's gasoline down there. I mean, I understand, I understand, we all have to live and die by these stupid codes.
I mean, it's not our jurisdiction, it's not something that we do, so I'm not one to argue about it. I just wasn't happy with the explanation for the change order. Obviously you guys have to be comfortable with it as well, but it just seems like
Not
they could've
only
done a
was
better
there
job.
no investigation of that in particular, I mean, I was at that pre-bid, I don't remember it even being a question. So everyone was more concerned about the door, now they were gonna get the generator. That was really
They were
the only
focused on the generator.
Yeah, that was
Generator
really the question I
replacement
remember being asked. So, I mean,
So at this juncture, what recourse do we have?
So we're still
What
negotiating
pushback?
with them to see if we can push back a little. One avenue is to, the lights have been delivered, so they have the fixtures. If they're not willing to install them because of code, we can take it out of the contract and take a credit for the labor and put the,
But we need these.
So-
right?
it's not in dire need, it's something that you haven't had and we're looking to
It's
get.
more
I'm not recommending it, I'm just saying it's another way you
No,
can
no.
go if you just can't negotiate with them. I mean, we can try and drop the hammer on them and say you own it, and that's where they're gonna go next is, well, why don't we just make this, we're taking care of the generator, here are your lights, we'll give you a credit for the
That's no good.
$2,000.
then you're gonna be
And
paying
that's
for
not
it anyway.
Christian's gonna come in and.
That's still
It's
gotta
the
be
same
solved.
thing.
So,
By someone else, and the same code's gonna have.
I,
And it's not, that's not something that
I would-
our guys can solve,
since
right?
you're in a rock and a hard place, negotiate and then, I mean, if they're throwing the have to meet code thing,
When we were discussing earlier, what my opinion was, if you go to a mechanic, they fix something, and then the problem's not fixed, you don't go back and they say, oh, actually, this is wrong. They don't charge you for labor again. They charge you for the part that they missed.
Yeah.
So it's like, as far as I'm concerned, if you wanna charge us what it's gonna cost for the conduits and the wiring, that's one thing. I don't see why we should be paying labor for them to do this. That's where I stand on it. To me, that's a fair ground. That's just my opinion.
do the best you can in negotiation, we'll go from there.
I think it is, I appreciate that, we'll do our best and see what we can get, but in the end. we
Well,
gotta
I'm
get it
sure
done,
they
and
didn't
we
want
just
to
gotta
go
get
well
past it.
because
We just gotta get
they probably weren't prepared to go into a wet one with confined space. Even though they should.
Right, that's why,
That's what their excuse is, but
I can understand it.
how do you get a job without?
Yeah,
I wouldn't have been on
That's
the
what-
job, I wouldn't have
thinking
been on the
is how
job
you-
because I wouldn't
That's
want to
part of
work
the job, you gotta
Do the job, so you gotta be prepared to go in one way or the other.
okay,
So
so
when do you think we'll know?
I think we need to nail this down, cause they don't wanna get out of
They wanna
town,
get out.
they wanna be done when they're done with the generator, so in the next couple of weeks, they wanna do the work.
So is that something we can have the chair and you converse about and give us the
I
opportunity
mean, I
to
think
sign off on it?
they're given, it sounds like you're saying negotiate, and then
Right.
Frank and I are in agreement, you're giving Frank the authorization to approve it.
It looks like
Or
worst case
I'm
scenario,
already deal directly with Steve, I don't.
Right. worst case scenario, we're looking at 6,000. If we get it down from there, is where, if the board is comfortable with 6,000 or less, as a change order, just to get it done.
But we'll let Steve make the final approval. I mean, that would make logical sense to me.
It just,
I won't ratify that next meeting, that's all.
Alright, I'm just trying to avoid that meeting law conflict with emails and stuff
Yeah,
going back
yeah, I
and
hate
forth.
that, by the way.
I know.
I'm not happy about
I
it at
agree.
all. Like Steve sent me a link for LinkedIn, I was worried to link into him. Seriously,
Yeah, I guess we gotta be careful, but yeah.
That's why you're not LinkedIn.
I sent you a link?
well, maybe you didn't.
Oh.
Watch out for spam.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you can let us, as soon as we know, if they're willing
And that's
to
what
work
we're
with
working
it.
on, and we'll get it worked out.
Yeah.
We gotta get it done. I think we're all in agreement that it doesn't make sense to walk away from it.
No.
And,
No, we've.
you know, it's just a matter of how hard we wanna push,
Yeah.
you know, nobody wants to go there. We don't wanna go to litigation.
No, it's a good and they're a good company too, I mean.
They're really good, they're doing great work, and you are getting something for that money. The question is, where you already gonna get? And again, you know, it clearly wasn't all shown on the drawing, that you need to do all of this once you touch this wire. And that, it's everything we just said, does that bring it to, should they have known as an electrician? Because they figured out pretty quickly, once they really looked at it, that it needed to be done.
Well, they got the two conduits, and that's standard procedure. Shouldn't have two wires in the system, two separate type of wires.
Yeah, they definitely,
It's
you'll
not-
come out of it
not
with a
wrong.
better product. You'll
It's not
come out
wrong.
with something. Alright, I'll let you know.
I have a couple of days off, so my email's gonna go to John.
John's got a couple days off, so my emails will go to.
And then we're gonna hit that fiber wire, right? And then.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about that.
Okay.
Do you wanna talk about phase 2 at all, or?
So that's actually, you're right, so phase 2 Cobb Street is, we met today, John and Frank and Howard, and I had Will Chandler from our office who's doing the lion's share of the design. And so phase 2 again is really just getting in and making repairs inside the well, not the electrical stuff, but just the components in the well. The sluice gate between the two wet wells starting there, so they can isolate the wet wells, get everything cleaned, and then coated, painted, and replacing the valves and stuff like that. So we're pretty much ready to go to bid on that, and we provided, so there is a set of, a hard copy of the spec and drawings here, and we also have it in PDF, so actually we hadn't sent it to the commission. If you wanna forward, I can forward it if you guys wanna see. The design as it is now. One of the big things that we talked about today is, you know, and Howard had pointed out, and rightfully so, is that's great coating it, but we need to do some kind of structural analysis to see if any repairs need to be made. And because of the nature of, it would be like doing the whole project twice, to draw down the wet well, clean it out and inspect it, and then find out what needed, and then come back later and bid it to do the coating. So, long story short, we're putting it in the contract. The contractor has to hire a company to come in and do the structural analysis. And then we have 3 different details of 3 different types of repairs that we would anticipate once they do the analysis and we get a chance to review it. And if we're gonna have them, you know, we'll put estimated quantities and they can put unit prices to those, so that as part of their contract, if we do identify areas that need certain types of repairs, we'll have a price in the contract for them to do that work, if that makes sense. You know, if we try to do all of that ahead of time and go into the contract knowing exactly where the repairs need to be made, it's just gonna be a lot longer process, and again, you're gonna be duplicating effort, I think. If that all makes sense. That's what we
We're
try.
trying to avoid the duplication of it,
Yeah.
because of the cost.
Do we think there are structural problems?
There are some deficiencies in the concrete from the initial stages when that wet well was put online, and it was very low flow going to the station, so the hydrogen sulfide gas, it really wreaked havoc on everything in there, and the ventilation system wasn't working shortly after that system went online. It failed rather quick, so there's quite a bit of deterioration to the grates, the conduits, the ladders, and some of the concrete. But we haven't physically seen the bottom of that wet well in probably close to 20 years.
Oh, the bobbin probably not a problem.
That's what we're hoping. And then
I
when
would
we
think that
still
everything
coating on
above
it,
the flow line is with problem, but based on my experience.
Muffin bone stuff.
but we're concerned about wear and if there's any erosion of the concrete from flow over time, where it may have penetrated the smooth layer. And that's what Steve was saying, we're gonna put different layers of deterioration in there with pricing. You know, if it's down to the rebar, if it's below rebar, anything
Makes
like
sense
that,
to me.
and hope for the best, but it's in rough shape. I mean, there's some pictures that were floating around a few years ago, we can probably drum that up.
They're on the grounds.
Yeah. We could also do a show and tell if you really wanna go down there.
I wanna take your word for
See
it.
if you want to do it.
I wanna see this muffin
See
bone
if you
stuff.
guys do it.
I always like hearing about
Never
muffin
seen
bone.
one. You know what it is?
Well, I got a pretty good idea what he's telling me. It's a chewer. Sewer chewer.
Yeah,
Sure, I like that.
I'm telling you, I remember the day I read it in my first magazine, I said, what a great name for, a gizmo. I expected on just about every project I worked on.
Speaking of the muffin monster, this is going back to a few minutes ago, we were talking about the metal conduit. The code says metal. I'm no electrician, but I do play one from time to time for CEM services, and I know that liquid type conduit is metal conduit with rubber around it.
Okay.
If you have to have something metal conduit, like a building, whatever, you're allowed to use flex conduit, which is exactly what liquid tight is with rubber around it. So I don't see why that wouldn't still qualify as metal conduit.
I wish I had the answer.
They go by the.
Going to hard metal conduit exposed actually bothers me more than the $6,000, because
Yeah, the whole thing,
you know.
That would make me crazy.
I was gonna ask that at the meeting today, but I didn't know if it has to do with grounding.
It has to be explosion proof stuff, so it has to be.
It's still grounded, it's grounded on the fittings, so I don't think that would still comply.
Do you know about what explosion proof actually means?
No, I hope I never find out.
Alright, so it isn't what you think it is. Well, I don't really know what you think it is, so that's kind of a stupid thing for me to say, but it has nothing to do with whether or not there's an explosion in the well. It has to do with happening in the conduit.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd let you know. I mean, I know it's kind of like misnomer, but if you look at NEC online, they define all the different nomenclature, like 1X, 2A, weather tight, and then 4X, which is
So the-
explosion proof.
The explosion they're referencing would be the explosion that happens inside this explosion-proof device, not
Correct.
an external explosion.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, it's not bomb proof.
It's not bomb proof, right? There's a misnomer. You think it's an explosion, and you think that's what the thing is designing for. I'm just saying that it has nothing to do with any of that stuff. Electrical code stuff. I used to actually have the whole code that I once memorized for some stupid reason.
Wow, yeah, I do much
That's
better.
impressive. It's a lot of code to memorize.
Yeah.
You all set, Steve? Okay. Alright, no, we'll talk.
Figure it out.
Sounds good. Alright, well, moving along, we got, those are all done. Any action items that we need for the next meeting? I think we got a few. Yeah. And then, next meeting date, we have any old business, that we wanna bring up, anyone?
Okay, I'm all set.
So we got July 11th or the 18th?
The 11th, right? Second Tuesday?
The 11th,
Next
so?
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you guys?
Works for me.
I don't know.
You don't know yet? Okay.
You still got me here?
I don't know. That's what I said, I don't know yet.
Alright,
We good?
without further ado.
All right, I would like to make a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.